I only have 20, 30 pages worth of stuff to go over.
Okay, just,
No, I'm just kidding.
okay, so we'll get started with the Thursday, April 11th, Housing and Community Development Committee meeting of the Albany Common Council. Present are committee members Conti, Love, Robinson, and myself, and
Valorant.
excuse me, Mr. Ballerin. I always forget someone. Mr. Ballerin. We're still waiting on Mr. Robinson. Excuse me. We're here to discuss and review year 45 HUD funding. And with that, I will turn it over to Director Andrews.
Okay, thanks. Actually, I'll give you all a copy of everything here too, and I'll email it out to you.
Oh, great.
The first thing I do just need to let you know is we have not notified any of the subrecipients of anything yet. So once we get through tonight, then, we'll start the preliminary award process and everything. But, there's not really too much bad news for anybody, so it's okay. But just so you know, we haven't really told anybody of any of our decisions or any of the reviews or anything on their grants, so.
So this is not for public
Yeah,
dissemination?
correct, except,
So
I'm
we're
hoping to
clear
get the letters out tomorrow. We just have to figure out dates, and I don't know if you guys are able to do that tonight, or if you need to let me know that tomorrow or something. But, so, anyway, so we have two different, and the other thing I also need to let you know is we still haven't gotten our allocations from HUD. Everything in the budget is level or a little bit higher. We just don't know what our actual allocation is because it depends every year on, our, how many communities actually end up being funded, because they don't always fund the same amount of communities. Here you go. So it should be somewhere around what we got last year. It should not be less than what we got last year. It might be a little bit more.
Okay.
We're not real sure.
And just for the record, Mr. Robinson has joined us. Sorry about that.
That's okay. So how about, let's see, which one do you want to start with? The awards and then go into the budget? Start with the awards? Sure. So most of the RFPs that submitted an application to us were funded outright. Two of them, and I'll go over two that were rated, the applications were rated poorly and we didn't fund them. That was CEG, Center for Economic Growth, and the Albany Parking Authority. Neither one of them, both just their applications just were not great. The Veterans Employment Program would have been great. They don't have any experience at all with that kind of a program. The person who reviewed it just felt that it wasn't appropriately written or anything like that. Same with the Parking Authority. And if you look, that's on this page right here. If you go back to there's in the highlighted areas are the new applications. It starts, I think, with Frank Chapman Memorial Institute.
Is it the back page?
Keep going. You'll get to it. It's several pages long. I did a little synopsis this year, which I don't usually do, so it just made the document.
This is pretty good.
Yeah, it usually, I don't know why I never did it before, but at least you have a little idea of what they were funded. The Frank Chapman Memorial Institute, they submitted an application to us. It was not complete, and I emailed them twice to get us documents by a certain day, and I never heard a response from them. So we didn't submit it for review. However, we do have another grant program that I'm going to send them the application for. It's called a Facilities Improvement Program. And they can apply for funding through that. It's a matching grant program, but you need a pen here?
Yeah.
Here. It's a matching grant program, but they can apply to us for up to $20,000 for repairs to the building through that program instead. So that's where we're at with that. So that's not like they're not being cut out of funding, it's just they weren't funded through this program, and we can help them with the other grant instead.
That was, you said the documents that they were missing, it was just...
It was almost everything.
Okay.
It was almost everything,
When I looked
yeah.
at Andrew Brown, I knew.
Yeah.
I kind of knew.
Yeah, so, well, they you know, and that's the hard part with some of the smaller organizations, is they struggle with grant writing. The facilities grant program is not competitive. We can help them with that one instead. So I think we'll be a little more successful with it with that grant instead. Another new program, if you go to the next page, is the Albany Community Action Partnership. They have a fatherhood workforce initiative where they work with fathers to help them get job training and to find employment. That program is going to work along with the Capri program, so they did ask for $55,000. Generally, our grants aren't for that much money, so we did award them $25,000 in hopes that they can work along with the Capri funding that they get to make that program whole. Let's see, Senior Services of Albany, that's another, it's an old program. They have received funding from us, but not for the past year and not for this program. They've moved into that new building up on Central, I
Yes,
think it is, right?
yeah.
And this is
Well,
to
actually, I
fund-
mean, they have a program, this program is there, but that's not where their headquarters or.
Right,
well,
right,
yeah.
correct, I'm sorry, yes.
Right.
So this is to fund the program at the site on Central Avenue. And, you know, they went kicking and screaming, I'll be honest, when we ended their funding, and they were not happy with us, but they went through their 3 years, and they
Right.
didn't have anything new, and then they finally came back and with something new, so, and it was, you know, the grant was well-written, and so hopefully that'll continue to be a good program for them. The next one is a village down in the south end, and what they requested funding for us to hire a staff person to work with the South End Community Collaboration. They and the South End Improvement Corporation together basically asked for almost $100,000 for this. Back in February, ACDA, the board approved funding to support an update to the South End neighborhood plan. So this would be kind of duplicative of that kind of programming down there. But A Village's application was real good, and they do run some really good programs. And so what my thought was to give them a call, and rather than fund this staff person, to put some funding towards one of their other programs so that they can start, you know, building up on one of the other programs. And I'll be honest, it's going to be a to be determined program. I can come back and let you know what it is. I just didn't want to have them not get funded just because we were doing something there, because they do so many good things down in the South End that I thought we could support something there.
So you didn't fund A Village because it's duplicate?
Right, so it's,
Another program?
so we're funding a plan already for the South End. And to put CDBG funding into two South End plans doesn't really make sense. So rather than to do that, we thought we could fund one of their other programs that they run down there. Because they'll be part of the neighborhood plan anyway. You know, we can't not include them when the city does the neighborhood plan there, so. Let's see what our next page is. The community builders, this is another new application. They own several buildings down in the Mansion District, and they've applied to us for $30,000 in CDBG funding to help with the rehab of two buildings that they recently purchased, 71 and 78 Grand Street. This would just be a one-time rehab of the building that they have for rentals. And let's see, African American Cultural Center. So they actually put in another really good application, but they asked for funding for two very different things. One was for some program funding, and one was some facility improvement money. So in order to make that request work, we are going to fund $14,400 for the program-related expenses that they put on their budget, and then give them also the application for the facility improvement grant that we have, so that they can use that program funding to do the required improvements to the building that they have there. The Baby Institute, that's a new program application. Everybody knows that program? Yeah. Yeah, So she is asking, they're asking for funding this year to support their summer camp. So they would serve 30 children with this program. Yeah, okay. And the final one is the Underground Railroad project. And that's a new program they would like to run out of there for a summer Healthy Choices Initiative program.
I do have a question. I just want
Sure.
to go back to the village for a
Yeah,
moment.
sure.
In scoring and reviewing the application,
Yeah.
is it typical that you're supposed to review each application independently and
Yeah.
award based on the application, not if they're going to do something with someone else?
I'm sorry, not if they're what?
And not if there's another service in the area,
Well,
you're supposed to score then based on and fund them based on what their application is, not based on if they can potentially partner with somebody else, right?
Well, typically what we try to do is to spread the money out, to use it the way, that's to meet a national objective with HUD, but to also, you don't want to duplicate services either. So if we're spending CDBG funding already on a neighborhood plan, and then my HUD rep says to me, well, how come you're also spending money on a neighborhood plan for somewhere else? Then we have to answer to that. So rather than to say outright that we can't fund it, I would rather be able to fund one of their programs that they can do down there already. So.
Now, and the questions in the RFP.
Excuse
does
me,
it
I'm sorry.
State in one of the questions somewhere along the lines is, how will you not duplicate any services in the area that's already? And did they answer that question?
Off the top of my head, I can't tell you for sure if they did. You can, if you want, I can look it over and I'll let you know tomorrow. And, and this is, so, you were part of the process last year. Generally what happens is we send out the preliminary award letters, and then there's always an appeal process. So if that isn't okay with them, this decision isn't okay with them, then they can come in and appeal that to you guys, and we usually figure it out after that, so. Okay. All right. The rest of the organizations are organizations that everyone is probably pretty familiar with, and most of the public service organizations are in their final third year of funding also. So what will happen next year, I hope, well, not that these programs aren't good, but I hope that we'll have another round of new programs that we can fund, which will be great, so.
In our own voices, is this the third year for them?
Yeah, yeah.
Is that the same program that we've been funding for 3 years? Okay.
Yes.
And was this the program that had the issue last year?
Yes.
It was HYPE?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the one.
The other program we funded was,
The ones that are in their third year would be In Our Own Voices, the Equinox Domestic Violence Shelter, Haddis's backpack program. Sorry. Hang on, let's see, where's the other one? The PAL program. Oh, and there is one other thing I need to tell you about too with the two NICs, and that's it. Those are the ones that are 3 years.
Yeah, sure. I do have a question. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
For the Black Nurses Coalition, I see that they kind of did the same thing that they did last year, actually around the
Correct.
same amount.
Yep.
And they're funded at significantly less than what they're asking for.
Yep.
And nowhere else do I see in this.
Right.
for
Well, a
relative
few of them,
that's
a few of them
that
come.
much.
Yeah. Most of them asked for what they got funded at last year, so that's part of the reason you see that. The other part of it is that we're still. She's doing a great job. Honestly, she's doing a great job. But we're still working on some of the, let's see, vouchering issues and things like that. And we've talked a lot with Brenda. She's pretty okay with the funding amount, and, but then again, if she's another one who can come in and appeal the process if she'd like to.
And when you say the vouchering process, you're referring to them submitting reimbursements for the program? If their paperwork's not in order or?
Yeah, a little
submit
bit.
late?
Yeah, a little bit. It's not late, there's no time frame on it, but, yeah. So, one of the other things I wanted to tell you too about the Arbor Hill Development Corporation and the South End Improvement Corporation. Not the home maintenance one, shoot, do I not have that one? Both of their South End and Arbor Hill, their home maintenance programs, they've both been struggling to spend their funding for the past several program years, and we end up, at the end of each program year, we end up recapturing funding from them and then re-awarding them funding the next program year, which isn't really making any sense. So we've put some different monitoring, and not controls so much, that's kind of I don't mean it to be as harsh as it sounds, but we've put some new requirements on them in terms of the way they voucher also, because we'd get a lot of vouchers for all their admin and not a lot of vouchers for their program money. So we're working some kinks out with that, but both of them are about halfway through, not quite halfway through their year 44 funding, and that program year ends at the end of May. So rather than award them new money, take back year 44 money, we're going to give them an extension on their year 44 money now that they seem to be working through everything and see where they're at. If we need to award them other additional funding before the end of year 44 and they're meeting their benchmarks and everything, we can look into doing that for them, but it just didn't make any sense for us to keep that going, and we can do an extension and extend that program money instead.
Now, I noticed that they're asking for, Arbor Hill Development's asking for the home maintenance and security program.
Yeah.
Is there any program measures that the grant looks for?
Yeah,
Okay.
So, and that's part of what's not, so every time they voucher us, so in other words, they normally have to serve a certain number of homeowners, right? And it's a $1,000 emergency repair program, can, fix the hot water tank, window or whatever. And what was happening is they weren't meeting their numbers every single year. It was just not really working well. So we met with both of them and we said, look, we've got to figure out how to do this, make it work better. So, because we know they all have people in their neighborhoods who can benefit from the programs. So I think we're providing a little more incentive to them now because they can only charge admin when they submit a voucher for a particular homeowner. You know what I mean? So, and I think that seems to be getting them to do it a little bit better. So, yeah. Yep. What else? Anything else on this?
Any other questions?
Excuse me, sorry. Okay, so this document here is our budget for all of the different funding streams that we receive from HUD. The first is our CDBG funding, and if the top is is this direct city funding sources that we provide, and then if you come down through, you'll see the different organizations that we just went over on this document are funded under the different categories, the housing and things. The property management and development, that's the funding that we use to maintain the different properties that we own. Hopefully we'll have one less property this year, right? Hoping.
Was she talking about 25 Delaware,
25
the old
Delaware,
senior
yeah.
citizen site, which
Yeah.
it's
Across from
still,
Price Chopper?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah,
It's
that's still in
in the works to be.
in limbo, but we're working on that one. But, so I don't know how many of you know, ACDA owns the SEFQ building up on Clinton Avenue. And so this, funding from there goes towards things like that. And the building that we're in, up until a little while ago, we also own the boxing gym, so we used a little funding on that, but anyway. But the public services are the ones we just went over here. One thing we did do differently this year, you'll see we did an increase to our CDBG funded in-house programs. And if you look on the second page, we decreased our home funding for the in-house programs. And the reason we did that is we're going to switch our down payment HAP program to be funded through CDBG. Because CDBG is more flexible, the grants will still be up to $14,900, but with the way the home funds work, sometimes we were only able to give somebody $1,200 to go towards their down payment costs. And so we're hoping that with CDBG we'll be able to provide a little bit more for them, so we switched it over to that. And then we've got the personnel, the OTPS, everything else is in there. And Jamel, I don't know if you were here when I first started. We don't actually know our exact numbers from HUD yet, but we're pretty sure we're fairly close to it. So we can only send out preliminary awards, start the process, start the appeal process and everything. But until we get that full actual amount from them, we can't, make anything definite.
Gotcha.
So, the next page is our home funds. We have the way the HUD regulations work with our home funding. We have to hold out 15% for organizations that are known, called community housing development organizations. We call it CHODOs. The only CHODO that we have currently is Habitat for Humanity. But South End Improvement Corporation has applied to be a CHODO. They haven't quite gotten their certification done. There's HUD has a lot of regulations around the certification of a CHODO. So we have 2 years to commit these funds. So they had asked for $30,000 to support a rehab on a home in the South End. They had a home identified, but until we get them certified, we can't commit those funds. So it'll either be the home that they've identified or another home that they identified down the road. So we did hold out the $30,000 for them so that they could get their certification with us and then, do the program. The in-house programs again is that's our homeowner rehab and our tenant assistance rehabilitation program, and that's for landlords who rent to low to moderate income tenants if they need help to rehabilitate do any modifications or anything to their homes. And the HIP is 25 Delaware. As we were just referring to 25 Delaware, we are hoping that building will sell soon, and they have a low-income housing tax credit application into the state. And the city is supporting that application through the home funds. If they don't get it, that money will just roll it back into the neighborhood revitalization. Okay.
I'm sorry, so 25 Delaware, you said for low income?
So the developer who wants to purchase the building has a application into the state for a low-income housing tax credit.
Oh, so you're going to change it to housing?
Yes.
Oh.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, it'll be affordable housing.
Right,
affordable
correct.
housing.
Yep. Yeah, they have a nice design. I'm hoping that they'll get that. So, the next funding source we have is called Emergency Solutions Grant funding. That's funding that we use to support organizations who provide either home shelters for homeless people or homeless prevention through either like legal aid goes and advocates on behalf of them in the courts. United Tenants advocates and helps with eviction prevention. They pay up to pay arrears. They use the funding to pay arrears and things like that. So.
I do have a question.
Sure.
What is CARES? function?
So, CARES function is, they've got they've got I should explain to you the CARES and the UTA situation. UTA has gone through some upheaval. I don't know if you're aware of the upheaval, but they've gone through, they're on their third director now in kind of a short amount of time. And the services that they're offering are great. They're vital. People need help paying their arrears, but we're concerned with a little bit of the administration of the program. So to have another set of eyes on this particular program for the first 6 months, we want to funnel that money through CARES, who will then monitor United Tenants on a weekly basis to make sure that things are going the direction that they're supposed to be going. It's always been a really, wonderful organization, and, I'm hoping that the new director can get them back on track. So that's why you have CARES in there. CARES is the organization that coordinates the COC, which is the Continuum of Care, which is the program that kind of oversees all of the homeless service organizations throughout most of the state at this point. They get funding from HUD and other funding sources, but their main funding is from HUD to be the coordinator of all those different organizations.
So for that funding, what CARES is just a pass-through, the money's going to UTA?
CARES is going to, yes, everything that UTA, CARES is going to contract with UTA, and everything that UTA submits to us is going to come to CARES first to make sure that it's all what it's supposed to be.
Gotcha. So CARES advocates more for the homeless?
Yeah, they do mostly homeless, and they do some programming for, they do a lot of AIDS and HIV housing projects and things too.
Gotcha.
They actually own some rental units around the city too.
They're on Dove Street. I think there's something on Myrtle, and they just had an application for something on, I think the south end for some new construction. And they're also doing new construction on
Is it
Elm.
on Elk or Elm?
Well, Elm is one
Yeah,
that's
there's
been
one.
approved, but I thought I
Oh,
saw
yeah,
another
you might- I
application
think
they
they
had
might have,
someplace
yeah.
else that, I forget where it was. I think
Yeah.
it was in the south end.
Yeah, it might be. I don't know where that one is. Yeah.
And aren't they're involved with the Capri?
And they are also the coordinator of the
They do
coordinator.
coordinate the Capri money funding. Mhm.
So do they have any effect on the United Tenants Association as far as how funds are distributed, or how are they?
So let's see, how do I explain it? They are, know the ESG regulations really, really well. And in order for us to be confident that UTA is going to be able to spend the money correctly, we thought it would be important to have just an extra set of eyes to administer it, so.
An oversight?
An oversight kind of thing, yeah. I'm hoping it works. There were some considerable issues there, and, I just feel like we need to have a little bit more eyes on that one.
And so you, just to be clear, United Tenants, they're making their own decisions.
Yeah,
It's
oh,
just
yeah.
that it's flowing through.
Oh, yeah, they're not making any, no, they're not running the organization or the agency or anything like that, no. Yeah. And then our last funding source is the HOPWA funding, which is the Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS and HIV. This is a 3-county program. It's, and really, ACDA is just a pass-through for these fundings, these funds. It's to provide different funding opportunities for, sometimes it's paying the arrears, so that a person who does have AIDS or HIV gets to stay in their home. It's really mostly for making sure that the housing is there and that they can stay in their housing and not have to worry about being homeless again or anything like that. Okay. Anything else on any of those? Excuse me. And I have a couple, if we're, I don't want to speed anything up, but if we're okay with
No,
this,
any
I just have a
questions,
couple flyers I want to give out to
Yeah, so
everybody.
you're gonna send the preliminary awards?
I'm going to
potential
send the
this week or
preliminary
tomorrow?
awards as long as we can pick a date. I have to put a notice in the, the
Right.
Times Union and then send them a letter that gives them at least 2 weeks to send something back to us in writing, and then after they do that, then they come to the appeals part. And everybody usually attends that committee, or, that appeals hearing. So, and we usually do it around 4:30 or 5 o'clock during the week. So if you guys need to kind of coordinate that and then let me know what works, that's fine. But I need to, if I get it to the Times Union, even if I get it to them tomorrow, it's not going to get in the legal section till Wednesday or Thursday. So even if you want to coordinate and let me know tomorrow or Monday, then I can start the process. But
I mean, it almost
know.
might make sense to look at calendars.
yeah, that's fine. I mean,
Now.
and the thing is we're not really in, I mean, I wish we were in a rush because that would mean we had our funding numbers, but we are not. So,
Can we
if you
look-
guys want
Does
to
it-
coordinate
shall we
and
look
look.
right
Can
now?
we just check
I'm just,
to you.
now?
I'm just trying to keep,
Check availability.
helping Michelle out, because
Yeah.
otherwise she's gonna go crazy.
And
That's
how
fine.
many weeks out are we talking? From
So if
So
you give
it
us-
would have to be probably sometime 2 weeks after Wednesday of next week, in order for me to have the listing in the newspaper. Let me grab my phone,
Look
too.
at
So we're looking at the 8th,
the week of May 8th,
yeah,
or the week of
that week, yeah.
May 6th.
May 6th.
The week of the 6th.
But we have common council on the 6th. So.
Yeah.
Kelly, you can close it up.
Sorry. Thank you.
So if you're looking at the week of May
It
6th,
falls a lot.
is that,
This is
we're
lightweight.
looking at the week of May 6th?
Okay,
I mean, I can do anything, obviously Monday would be out, but otherwise, I'm pretty flexible.
Tuesday, Wednesday.
yeah, I mean, it's just our audit, but,
So what day we're looking at?
We're looking, I guess we're looking at the week of May 6th, and then in terms of, Monday would be our meeting, so that would not be a day you want to look at.
Well, I'm good most of that week so far. On the calendar.
We do it Tuesday, I'll be out of work until 6, so the earliest we can do is at 6:30 on Tuesday.
So, yeah. So
I'm
that's
sorry,
the
what did you
week.
say, about 6:30?
On Tuesday, like, don't get out of work till 6.
Oh, okay.
That's my late day.
What about Wednesday?
Wednesday, I'm
The
open,
8th.
Thursday, I'm open.
Thursdays are
What
best.
about the
for me.
8th?
Thursday's good?
Thursdays are best for me.
How about the 9th?
Yeah, Thursday, that's Thursday, that's okay with me.
Thursday
Ninth?
night?
on the 9th also, that's fine with me too, that works. On the 9th, we're going to actually have a community development day at the office, kind of celebrating, we're going into our 45th year.
What day,
so
what time are you talking about on Thursday?
4:30?
4:35,
That
whatever
night,
works.
that's champagne.
5:30 for me, I'm gonna.
Yeah, that's
Right, it's leading into Tulip Fest, yeah,
Some events.
And that's set at 200?
yeah. Does that work?
So what, 5 or?
I don't, whatever you
Fi-
guys tell me, what's
Is it
easier for you,
in
5 o'clock?
The earlier you can do it on that day would be better for me, because I might,
5:30 works best for me.
So if
I
Fredo needs 5:30, it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah,
I can
Thursday
do,
works for me.
I can do 5 if
And this is going to be at Henry Johnson? Like,
Yeah.
joint meeting? Okay.
Correct.
5.
Yeah, 5:30 is good, he can start at 5.
Yeah, 5:30 doesn't.
And you need
that's
to be
not
out
me.
by-
I don't know, I think I have an event that night that I need to be at.
What time is
Probably.
your?
I think it's usually 5:30 to 7:30.
Yeah. So going into the
So-
following week, I'm away at a conference that whole week. So it's either that week or the
I mean,
week
if
of
you
the
do it that
20th.
night, and if I have to leave or can't make it, I mean, as long as you have 4 people there, then I
Yeah,
can follow up with folks
okay.
on the 9th. The 8th is not good. right?
The 8th is not good?
That's not
What?
too far out, is it?
On what? No, it's fine because we have 60 days from the day we get our allocation to submit it to HUDs. And since we haven't even gotten the allocation yet, we've got plenty of time.
Thursday,
That's 2 weeks later.
Thursday, the 23rd?
Thursday, the 23rd, how's that look for you, Richard?
Sorry, right now, looks good. I mean, that's okay?
It's up, yeah, it's fine, whatever.
Okay,
Yeah.
All right.
President Lee,
at 5:30 on
For a
the
second, sorry.
23rd.
Just reaching, grabbing your stuff, sorry.
5:30 on the 23rd.
5:23 at 5:30.
We
There
have
you
a
go,
meeting.
sorry. Thank you.
On the 23rd? Oh, what do we have on the
23rd,
23rd?
the next month.
We, on May
We have a
20?
human rights.
No, not on May 23rd.
Oh, me. Oh.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah.
We have so much
Oh,
meetings
yeah,
in
wait,
April.
wait.
I'm
Yeah.
like, what are you doing?
We're way out.
What are you doing, Jerry?
Yeah, we're going further out now.
Okay, May 23rd.
May 23rd, 5:30.
That works,
I'll
that's
schedule
great.
it.
Okay. I just also wanted to give a couple flyers to you. We started a new program this week called Albany Access. It's using that fund, thanks. We had gotten that repayment back from that Bleecker Terrace, and so we're using funding from that, which allows us to raise the income eligibility a little bit for everybody. But Albany Access is a program that will assist people with disabilities to make their homes more comfortable, easier to live in. So I wanted to give you our updated flyer. It's got all our programs on it with
Yeah, like handicap
with a
ramps and
little,
stuff
yeah,
like that.
ramps if you need them. It's up to 25,000. Ramps, if kitchen counters, if you need to, lower any things like that, make doors wider, bathrooms. Yeah, things like that. Yeah, so we've, and actually we did the press release on Monday and had like 15 or 20 calls right away on Tuesday about it, so that was great. And then this is another flyer for our lead program. We're trying to highlight that one, a little bit more where we want to make sure that we get, reach as many communities as possible, because all our programs serve the whole city. And then sometimes it doesn't get out everywhere, so we're trying to spread the word out and make sure everybody knows what we're doing.
Cool.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope. No one has anything else? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's good.